Greetings in love and oneness, beloved souls and gifted spirits across the globe. This is Aphrodite Stone, student and teacher, and the Starseed Healer. Welcome to the Ancestral Lineage Healing Guided Meditation. This is it, what you've been waiting for, the chance to clear past debts, renew karma, and right the wrongs of your beloved ancestors. This is a daring feat and at the same time a rewarding and fulfilling experience that will allow spiritual growth and expansion of consciousness. This meditation is designed to help you heal past hurts and clear emotional blockages, break the chains of generational curses, and live a more peaceful, loving, and abundant life. So when you're ready, I'd like for you to take a comfortable position and relax.
Yo, welcome to Under the Influence, Cocktails and Consciousness. This is a critical thinking platform where we talk about issues important to the millennial and not so important to the millennial. As we know, sometimes those issues are tough to deal with, so we handle them with a drink. This is your host, Caleb, and the lovely
Ivory.
And today's show is Ancestral Trauma. All right. Now, basically, this was a topic brought to me or thought about in cohesion with Ivory. And, she feels like this is something that you guys need to know about. So I'm going to let her go ahead and take over on this one. Let us know about ancestral trauma.
Well, I think that it's something that I don't know if it's something that people necessarily need to know about, but I think if you're gonna talk about, the social ills that happen in our society, and specifically the social ills that happen in our communities, specifically, the Black community, Black millennial communities, are where we come from as Black millennials. You kind of have to explore different categories in which those social ills derive from. And so I was just randomly doing a little bit of reading online, like I always do, and somebody was talking about some phobia that they were experiencing and they did not know where it came from. And then another person had responded that they should look into ancestral trauma and and maybe they'll find the source of their phobia. And it's just kind of like, a light bulb came on to me. It piques my interest because I'm always really interested in like energies and things unseen and how they play a huge part in how we function in society. I think that a lot of times we like to spend time on like the external and the tangible stuff, but I think that sometimes we can get to the root of the issue and we start exploring the things that are not seen and can be touched, but that are actually have energies attached to it, or that are attached to something more larger than ourselves. So I'm like, I want to like research this ancestral trauma a little bit more. I know that I've kind of had my own personal experiences with feeling connected to some people that came before me, and I remember we always talked about this in my family a lot, like generational curses. I'm sure you probably heard of that term before, right? Like generational curse and what that means, and so just kind of wanted to dig into and explore a little bit more. So in my research, I found out that ancestral trauma is the definition of it is ancestors who experienced something so traumatic that the energy of that trauma was passed down from parent to child. Now, obviously, if you're anything like me, when you hear that sentence, I think of, what do you think of when you hear that sentence?
Trauma, ancestral trauma passed down.
When an ancestor experienced something so traumatic that the energy of that trauma is passed down.
Now we are talking about millennials.
Right.
And Black millennials, probably.
Uh-huh.
Nah, I'm slavery, of course.
Right.
Of course. Of
Exactly.
course.
So, I mean, I think that obviously we explore all type of other things. I think that we're getting close to the root of it. And when we talk about PTSD, and the lady's name escapes me right now, but she talks about post-slavery stress disorder and what effect that has on our. I wish I could remember her name right now. I'm gonna look it up and I'll let y'all know by the end of the show. But she gives a lot of insight and a lot of, like, clarity on why we as a community, a black community, are the way that we are. But I wanted to touch more on the spiritual piece of it, and maybe not even go as far back as slavery, but even go, one generation back to our parents, or our grandparents, maybe two generations back, and really kind of explore, like, maybe, why we have some fears of not pursuing certain things. We always talk about that in our podcast, about how, fear is like the thing that really kind of gets in the way of us doing that thing that we really want to do. So where that fear comes from, and also just maybe some, like, instinctual things that you feel, or you have high alert about, and, like, you always wonder where it comes from. And as a people of, like, a group of people of color, we don't know a lot about our ancestors, and we have a history in our families, not across the board, but traditionally in the black community, of not talking about what happens in the past. So that's where that trauma comes from. So, what do you think about all of this,
I
Caleb?
I definitely, like I say, I agree. The number one thing I think about is, of course, slavery. It was a lot of, tortures. There's a lot of torture going on, and of course, the reason why I say slavery, of course, is because I'm black. Um, but I can see, even from the outside looking in, other people who went through, I can't ever say equal, because hell, we went through the worst and we built a country, and I know people be say that's not the case, but even, like, Jewish people, when you think
With the
about their
Holocaust.
trauma in the Holocaust, like,
Right.
there's a reason why they, interact with everybody else, or and do business deals, and just live the way they live today. They've never forgotten. And, back to slavery, I think, the reason why our people are the way they are today is because we haven't forgotten. And I believe that.
I think that, for me, on the opposite end of that, I think that it's not necessarily we've forgotten. I think that we don't know. I think that it's trauma that exists
I said we haven't forgotten.
but we don't even know
Oh, okay.
like, we don't even know the level of traumatic experiences that our ancestors had. We don't even know. We don't know the history of it, as opposed to, like, the descendants of those who experienced the Holocaust. I think that they do know, and I think that, there's more information out there about it. I think there's been a strategic, like, plan to not put a lot of information out there about what actually happened during slavery. And so I think that one of the things that black people struggle with is this idea of feeling a level of oppression and like, and cluelessness, but not knowing where it comes from, because we know that there's a missing piece, there's a missing link in some level of our lives, but not knowing the root of it because we don't have the knowledge. And that's trauma too, right?
Definitely. But I think even if they don't know, I mean, even for the people who don't know, it shows in their daily lives.
Right.
I mean, I think you can kind of see, I look people in I have a tendency, to look people in the eyes when I see them. Like, I'm a Scorpio, and people always say I have mysterious eyes, and I don't mind, like, looking people in the eyes, because people they usually tune in, or they usually, like, look away quickly. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I look people in the eyes, so you can see it in their eyes a lot of times. You know what I mean? And it can be band like a lot of things. It could be a band-aid on it, but, like, you can see. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I always think about this. I always think about, like, when I see young black men. When I see young black men and they, like, you know out, and they're, like, out in the streets, and they like, I always think back like, this young black man is like probably a warrior. Like a lot of times, I feel like the ones who have all the disruption problems and don't pay attention and stuff like that in class, and I think those are like probably a lot of the warriors, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they not supposed to do that. They trying to really like we're tribal people.
Right.
So I feel like that kind of plays back into our ancestral.
They don't fit into the mold of traditional like
Nah,
ways of learning or receiving information.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that. I see that a lot in the students that I work with too. Um, I also think about too when it comes to like the whole idea of ancestral trauma is maybe even the obviously there's the horrible pieces of like passing down like traumatic experiences that haven't been dealt with to like the people after you, but also like if have you ever had experiences where like you know there was some qualities about you where you had no clue, like I don't know where it comes from, there's no like no direct like resemblance of it around you, and but you feel like it's something that you carry within you. I feel like that's a part of like that ancestral, like I feel like I have like a strong level of like resiliency, and like even when something really horrible happens, I know how to like just get back up or pick up, and I feel like that comes from some ancestral like strong-willed woman in my past who probably was a slave, or maybe she wasn't, but she was something that was very strong, and I feel like I carry that because I don't know where it comes from. Most of people around me, family included, I'm always like the one that's like the strongest, and I can carry a lot of things, and I think that comes from like I always feel like it comes from something connected to like my ancestral past. What do you think? I mean, do you?
I think it's true. I mean, I think that plays. I think that there's a reason why this topic or this type of study hasn't been studied very thoroughly,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that this would be like a good you know example for reparations and stuff like that. I actually read the other day that the Indians are getting ready to settle for a couple $1 billion
Hmm.
for reparations for what happened to them. So I only think about what's probably getting ready to down the line
We
or
ain't getting no
soon.
reparations.
But if we did, though, I don't think that that's a good thing, because I think that only tells us, hey,
It can come in different forms though.
yeah, but I only think that them getting money, because they're getting money. So I think that if they did that, the reason why they're giving money out is because the money is not going to be worth shit pretty soon, and that goes hand in hand with the whole crash that we know is supposed to be evident. But back to it, I think like you know our people, as far as ancestral trauma, this is something that hasn't been studied a lot as far as DNA.
Right.
DNA kind of coincides with this. Like, when you go to a sperm bank and a woman goes to a sperm bank and she says, "I want a smart man." I mean, if things weren't passed down through lineage, then like, you couldn't go and request some shit like that. You couldn't request. I mean, of course, when it comes to image like hair or eyes and stuff like that, but you can't request a smart person or somebody like that. You know what I mean? Unless that kind of passes down. So
And it does, right? Because
yeah,
we know that that exists. That's a really good example about how like they there was actually a sperm bank built that strategically had the sperm of male descendants who were intelligent and prestigious, and worked at in really high echelon jobs. And because I watched a documentary about this, and so the children, not knowing who their biological father was, they also grew up being smart, and they would say like just academics came really easy to me. So we know that that exists. There was also like a study on mice that I read about how like um some scientists took like some mice and exposed them to like some aroma that they were supposed to feel like afraid of, or experienced some level of trauma from. And then when the mice had children, the mice not going through that same experience as soon as they smelled that same aroma, not having gone through that same experience as their parent, automatically became afraid of that smell too. So it's real, like it exists. And so I want to touch on what I researched, the four primary mechanisms of ancestral trauma, and where it comes from, how it's passed down. The first one is silence. So basically a person who is experiencing trauma not talking about it or talking their way through it and internalizing it. So when they have children, it's passed down to their children, and their children do the same thing. They don't talk about it, so it's passed down to the next child, and so on and so forth. So basically, you don't break that chain of trauma until you start speaking about the incident. So that's one. Then two was the over disclosure by adults to children of their past trauma. So on one end there's silence, but on the other end it's the adult talking excessively about what happened to them, almost to the point where like the child takes on that emotion as their own and they internalize it. And then there's identification, where the child feels responsible for the parent's distress, and if only they were good children and the parent wouldn't be so angry or so outraged. So not knowing that their parent is probably having these experiences from their own childhood, and they haven't dealt with it, so they have these rages or outlashes, and the child takes that on as something that's their fault. And so that's that trauma being passed down. And then number four is reenactment. So basically trauma survivors tend to reenact their trauma with their child. So you can imagine what that is. That's anything from like whippings. Obviously, like the whole like idea of slaves getting whipped and then you passing that down to your child as a form of discipline. I'm not an advocate of like corporal punishment, and that's a really taboo in the Black community. I always tell like my siblings that I'm not gonna hit my child, and they think that I'm being like dramatic, but that's real. Like that's trauma being passed down, and we don't always realize that. So those were the four. After hearing those four, is there any of them that you feel like you can identify with?
I think I can identify with several, but I'll start off with the first one. Silence. Again, silence helps maintain an earlier battle with the effects of trauma. I feel like that kind of goes back to suppression. I think, excuse me, I think that goes back to slavery. That's the first thing that kind of touches me there, because I feel like that goes. I picture it this way, and follow me if you can. I picture it, me on a plantation, me going through hell, me knowing that this is wrong, me being told about Christianity, me being told about religion, the way that I can basically get out of what I'm in without actually physically getting out of it. Me living this creed of knowing, hey, I'm going through this bullshit now, but in my afterlife, I'll have everything I ever want. And all I have to do is be a good person. You know what I mean? So you kind of shy away from expressing emotions. You kind of go towards the route of, all right, I'm just going to be silent about it.
Suppress it.
Yeah, I'm just going to be quiet and, and not let anybody know, and, they'll never know. And I don't think that's the right route. I think people do that today. I think people do that a lot today. Like we talk about, there's a lot of things that go on in people's families, which I feel like we just be quiet about, even though we know about it, and we act like it's just gonna go away. But what happens when you don't talk about things, you don't get to the bottom of things or get to a thorough understanding of things, that you kind of, that suppression boils, and it boils in you, and you create ticking time bombs of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in the Black community today, we have a ticking time bomb culture. And
Definitely.
I think a lot of that comes from suppression, whether it be from people wanting us to shut up and us being trained to shut up and just deal with it, knowing that it's something not healthy to be dealt with because it needs to be talked about, or within the general, just in the family unit. You know what I mean? I think that's just
Right.
what happens. What do you think?
No, I definitely agree with that. And also, like, the idea of being silent because, and like, and it's the only way I can put it, like slave culture, that's the only way I can like terminalize it in a nutshell. Like, you have to kind of do things in secret in order to survive. So, if you want to go get a, some more food from the big house, you got to do it in secret. Or if you want to spend time, with your partner without, the master. And I'm just, generalizing here. Clearly, we don't know the details, but from the little, things that we do know about slavery, like, you had to live your life in secrecy so that the master couldn't dictate every part of your life. And so you learn to just, and as parents, I'm sure they taught their kids, like, anything that the child wanted to do, they said, don't speak about that, don't say that to anybody, don't tell anybody. So you kind of taught to, like, do things in secret. And that's definitely been passed on. I'm sure every black child, well, not every, but most have had, their parents say, don't go back to school and tell them what happened at home, or don't go tell, your neighbor, or don't even go tell your grandma, or so we learn to
Yeah.
keep that silence to, or those things to ourselves. So for sure.
And then another one I can relate to again is the over disclosure by adults. I can't really relate to it myself, but I can relate to it as far as seeing it from a third person view, you know, around other people. Like I've seen, people say you ain't shit or you ain't never gonna be shit because I ain't shit. I wasn't this and this and that. Like I can only imagine, like because people project feelings onto each other, especially when it's like your blood and you can see yourself in that person. So like I think that's kind of from I mean you might be able to go deeper than I can, but like as far as over disclosure, I feel like that's a form of it. Just kind of in some way aiming and firing your faults or your shortcomings onto your child because you believe, for some reason, it's pessimistic, but you're like, how can you be better than I?
Right.
So, I mean, I can definitely understand that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that happens often. I know the first example that comes to mind is that, a lot of mothers like to tell their children about, like, maybe like if they're having difficulties or like disruptions between like the relationship with the father, like they like to give details about, like, what he is or isn't doing, or like, like, and I think that's over disclosure, because what happens is you're planting seeds in that child's mind, not only about their dad but about men overall. And then, especially like young girls that grow up having like a really like jaded view about men before they have their own experience, because they've heard stories from their mom, or they've heard stories from, I mean, they've seen it too, not taking away the responsibility of what actually happens, but they hear those stories too. And so I think that's over disclosure too. Like, there's some things that it's not ready for a child's brain to absorb. And so those like stories about like relationship stuff is definitely one of them. um so that's kind of more on the light end, but also obviously on like, harsher ends about like some really traumatic things. You gotta really use like your best judgment to know if a child is mature enough to be ready to like internalize the information. If not, they're gonna internalize it in the only way a child can, and that could be really traumatic for them. So definitely. um and the other two, obviously, identification and, child feeling responsible, and then reenactment, adults reenacting what they experienced on their child, are sort of similar. um
I can identify reenactment too, though. I mean, I can. What I mean? As far as like a lot of discipline, a lot of ways I was disciplined. What I
right.
mean? That's kind of like the things that I see myself.
Right.
What I mean? So I understand that. I mean,
Yeah, I do too.
and it's traumatic. It is traumatic to a certain extent because, you know, you have to, again, if you're one of those people who do think about things, need to be. Matter of fact, you're not even trying to. You need to be one of those people who are thinking about things you're doing. You don't just go along with it, you know, and just live on that age old thing. Like, my mama did it to me, or my dad did it to me, so I'm gonna do it. Cause like,
And because
who's
I came out okay, and then you looking like you really didn't come out okay. Like,
right, right.
that's the age old saying. It's like, well, I that happened to me and I'm okay. And no, you're not
You're not
okay.
okay.
So,
So you need to, like, you gotta understand that technology gets better. So so the same way should be with your family unit, and the way you are with with people, period. But especially the younger generation, because they're gonna be the generation that come up and are the epitome of what you have disclosed to them, both physically and emotionally.
okay, how are you comparing technology to people?
Because like technology upgrades, so like us as a people, we need to upgrade too. We need to upgrade
Right,
our
but
thinking.
how are the two similar in terms of being able to like progress?
I just feel like technology builds upon the past. You know what I mean? Technology is one of those things that kind of builds upon the past. Like you have a iPhone 5, iPhone 6, iPhone 7. Now, it's literally there might only be one thing better about the new iPhone, but it's better.
But
It's marketed.
there's no emotional connection to like technology, like the which is the reason why it's difficult for human beings to is because we have that emotional piece. We're able to think and feel. Where in terms of technology, there's no feeling involved.
I'm just being like in general. I'm not being deep
I'm
with
just trying to
it.
understand where
I mean, I just think
that comparison
upgrading.
came from.
I just think upgrading. You supposed to be better. You don't need to be on the same level. I think when you think, hey, when you say my parents did this, I'm gonna do it to me, that puts you on the same level as your parents.
Right.
You need to be better than your parents.
Right.
So like, as far as technology, you wouldn't buy an iPhone 6 if the shit was the same exact thing, no changes to iPhone 7. So like, you need to be an upgrade from your parents. Your kids need to be an upgrade from you, and so on until you get up to some point closest as you can to perfection, because we'll never be perfect. But at least you're better off than the generations prior to. So as far as just just upgrading, you know what I mean?
All right. And then I think we touched on the identification, feeling responsible for the parent, distress, believing if only you were good enough as a child, your parent wouldn't be so angry. Um, hmm. I do understand that. I understand that concept, and I feel like I had a little bit of that growing up, but thankfully, like that's something I kind of got rid of early on, but I get it. I get where it comes from.
Yeah, I can't really relate to that one. I can't. I can remember maybe some instances, but overall,
Yeah.
can't really relate to that one. But so yeah, so overall, man, overall, what do you think about? I mean, just
I
again,
think it's a heavy topic, and I think it's a really like it's it's a lot to dive into, um, and it's a lot to explore. But I think it's worth exploring if you want to get a little bit of clarity on why things are the way that they are. I'm such a big component on not believing that this is just the way it is, and really finding the root cause of things. And I think that ancestral trauma is one way to like explore that and to begin like the healing process. And
I feel like it's an upside too, though. The upside to it is that this as much as the trauma you got the good traits too,
right.
and you come from strong people because they had to adapt to a terrible situation. You know what I mean? Because you're alive, you're here. Otherwise, your bloodline would be dead.
Yeah, I think as a people, resiliency and the ability to adapt is strong within like especially um African ancestry. I think it's strong, clearly. So That's the good thing about being a part of like that, or this bloodline. So
Yeah.
just know that the DNA is real, and you carry more than just physical attributes from the people before you. You carry some other things as well. Be aware of that.
Definitely. All right. So that has been our show on ancestral trauma. Again, man, you carry some very traumatic things. You need to look into those things. You need to ask many questions, ask many why questions, ask many how questions, and that's how you get to the bottom of things. But as always, man, don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave comments, man. If you have any questions on anything, let us know, man. Don't forget to hit us up on the Gmail. Also, we will respond back. We've been getting quite a few emails, and we've been responding back as quick as we could. So we will continue to do that.
What's the email?
This is under the influence cc at gmail.com. All
Okay.
right. All right. And until next time, man, we signing off.
Bye.